Yo, what is going on, guys? Frankie Trades here, bringing you another new weekly stock watch list. Before we get started, though, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'd really appreciate it. And with that much more being said, let's go ahead and dive into the watch list. So, as far as earnings this week, obviously the biggest one being Nvda. Now, I know everyone's going to be keeping their eyes on Nvda for this week, but for me personally, and I think for the chat overall, we're not going to be looking at Nvda till post earnings on Wednesday, meaning we won't be actively trading this until Thursday morning after market opens. Now, with that being said, that is about all I'm watching for this week. The only other two stocks that we could maybe have some sort of after earnings move as well could be Snow, Crowd, and Baba, which Snow and Crowd report after close on Wednesday, same day as Nvda, and then Baba reporting before market open on Friday. Baba's the one I'm really excited about. Snow and Crowd can be a little tricky with how wide those spreads can be, but Baba may be able to provide us something depending on on how earnings go for that stock. But besides that, that is all for earnings this week. Nvda being the biggest thing that we need to keep an eye out for, and I'm sure that the entire market is going to be waiting on and see how Nvda reports for this quarter. So going into the watch list, which I'm sure most of you are excited about, we'll talk about the indexes as per usual, as we typically do. Friday, obviously, we had a major recovery with Jay Powell speaking. So going into this week, all I'm looking at for ES, since we are more catered towards the upside than the downside, meaning we're closer to relevant levels to the high than any relevant levels to the low. I'm going to be keeping an eye out for the level at 6,500 on ES, and then after that, going anything above all-time highs at 6,508/6,510. So pretty straightforward setup. Like I said, there's no relevant levels to the downside that I'm interested on, especially after the pump we had on Friday. So I'm just looking for a continuation here. Next up, NQ, similar story, but NQ is behind the market. It's way further behind than what ES is close to all-time highs. Now, with NQ here, we actually have a trend line here on the 4-hour or even on the 1-hour. Either one works. It looks cleaner on the 1-hour. But you can see that we have respected this trend line multiple times now. 1, 2, 3, 4 times now off this trend line we have rejected off of. And with that being said, on the previous watchlist video, either on the last one or the 2 weeks before, we had talked about the 600 level and the 800 level being important. Now, if you go on the 1-hour or the 4-hour, you can see on here, I'll show you on the 4-hour because it's a little more clear. If we go to the 4-hour here, you can see that 800 was a previous resistance or support that we had, now turned into a resistance. As you can see, we broke it for the first time. We didn't close. The first time we actually closed below it, we tried retesting it the next couple of days, and we couldn't have any, we just couldn't close back above the 800 area, and we decided to drop down. Test the 600 area, broke straight through, and now going into what happened on Friday, we pumped. 600 came about. We couldn't get a close above there, showing that this old support is now turned resistance. And this may be the same thing with 23,800 here on NQ. Like, the big thing you have to remember here with NQ is it is lagging and it is behind the market compared to something like ES. So that's the only thing really got to keep an eye out for is the 600 area, 800, and then after that would be all-time highs at 24,000. Who knows how this is going to open up during the weekend, so being today or going into tomorrow morning. It's not my job to predict where it's going to happen or where it's going to be at. My job is to react on how it opens up on Monday morning and going about from there. But yeah, NQ pretty straightforward, looking at the 600 area, 800 area, and then this 1-hour trend line that I showed you guys on the 1-hour time frame. Now, as far as stocks go, first things first is Google. I'm sure you guys took a quick peek on this one. After earnings high, I guess all-time high is 209.51. The high we made on Friday is around 208.80, I believe, 208.50. So the level that I'm looking at here is the 209 entry on Google. Now, the tricky part about this is this 4-hour trend line that we have here. Now, we have rejected off of it twice. 2 times right here off its starting point, so it is a valid trend line to me, but this does need a little bit more time to develop. The only thing I don't like about this, it's Google. Google's a pretty tricky stock to trade at times, so my thing with Google is if we ever do end up coming up to this 209 area, I need Google to be ahead, and I need it to be strong, ahead of the market. So meaning that the market's flat or making lows, and Google's holding its previous level or some sort of local high or whatever. It's just showing me strength that it's holding up against the market during pullbacks or consolidation. That's showing me signs that Google is strong. That's the only way I end up taking Google here if it doesn't set up or consolidate at this 209 area or even at that all-time high at 209.50. My target would be 210 despite on both entries because the only 2 entries I can see on this is 209 or 209.50 going into that 210 area. Like I said, Google is a little tricky when it comes to trading it because it really needs to set up in specific ways for you in order to capitalize on the moves that it makes. So in this specific scenario, I would like it to consolidate a little bit more, but if we happen to come up, then it's whatever, right? I'll just have to go in lighter. So, but yeah, that's Google. Pretty straightforward setup, all-time high play. Next up is Microsoft. Now, Microsoft here is actually cooking up something pretty nice here. The only tricky part is this 4-hour trend line. Now, this is part of the setup, but the thing that makes it tricky is we're kind of trading into an area where we have traded at before on Microsoft, which kind of makes it a little tricky with this congestion it's had. Now, my setup on this, or my trade idea, is we have this 4-hour trend line where we're rejected off around 4 or 5 times. You guys can do the counting off the wicks, but it's around 4 or 5 times. We actually have a flat top here across 511. Now, the issue with this flat top is it's only a 3-day setup at this point. There's not much consolidation here. It's kind of based off of pre-market high, but it's the closest level that I can get to wanting to play this trend line, because I do want to play this trend line, but I won't just play the trend line on its own. That's not our job. That's not what we do in stock hours. It is pretty risky, and you're just playing off of lines, right? You're not playing off anything relevant. Now, to make this setup or the trade idea relevant is to play something alongside it. So in this instance, I'm playing an important level, which would be 511, which is a flat top that it held from pre-market, and we rejected off of Friday. So that's the relevance of this setup playing with this trend line. So again, on Microsoft here, I'm looking at 511 breakout with this 4-hour trend line break. Next up, and last but not least, is Tesla. Now, Tesla being the stock of the week with the move it made on Friday. Of course, it was the news, but Tesla definitely held up on some of its own strength as well. The problem with Tesla, it is in a major consolidation right now, so it makes it really tricky to trade. Now, the nice part about Tesla, for a lot of those who are in the chat, we do end up taking a lot of intraday trades on Tesla, even if it's not at important levels yet, because of how smooth and operational Tesla can be with the liquidity behind the option contracts and the stock itself. It has a lot of follow through. It's a lot of good things about Tesla. Now, the tricky part for me for you guys, for the ones who aren't in the chat, is to tell you guys where exactly to get in at for this. For me, obviously the big area that everyone will be keeping an eye out for on Tesla will be at this 349 area over here, and then 350. Now, until then, I'm sure we can look at a few scalps in the chat, which probably be maybe 342, 341 here, maybe even 345. I don't know, right? I can't tell you guys what areas are good to scalp, because maybe some days Tesla just isn't scalpable and the follow through just isn't there. But you guys have to be part of the chat to be able to be there with us and be able to read it at the same time that we are reading it at, right? So I can't really give you guys an exact scenario or even exact setups on where to scalp this at, but just know the real ideal setup will be at 349 or even 350 on Tesla. But yeah, that's about it for the watch list, though, guys. That is all that I had that looked solid. Nvidia, obviously, I can't have that on the watch list because of earnings for this week, but that will be the biggest factor or news catalyst for this entire week that the market will be dependent on and waiting for. So, of course, with the whole chip AI thing, that's obviously why. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Before you go, though, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'd really appreciate it. With that being said, hope you guys enjoyed the rest of your Sunday and have a fantastic week. Peace.